Welcome to episode 3, Fanatics. First off, I do want to say that I really appreciate the recent love on the podcast's Instagram. We've been getting a large influx of follows, likes, comments, and the growing support is amazing to see. So thank you very much, first of all, for that. If you are not already, please follow that very Instagram account at all.sportsnow that I've shouted out probably way too many times already. Today, we have Division III UW-Stevens Point linebacker AJ Allessio as our guest on the podcast to talk about his college football experience as a freshman. We'll also be going over our very own NFL power rankings, what no preseason means for the NFL, the football world's reaction to COVID in college, the pros, and high school, and much more right here on All Sports Now.
Keenum's going to try to work the ball on the boundary. Keenum steps into it. Pass is caught. Diggs! Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable! Vikings win it! And the Cubs have finally won it all! 8-7-10. Ball go! Rebound Bosch! Back out to Allen! His three-pointer! Bang! Tie game with 5 seconds remaining!
The following episode is sponsored by Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor before, it is the easiest way by far to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it is free. You do not have to pay a cent. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your very own phone or computer. Anchor will then distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more mediums. You can make money from your podcasts with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. Make sure you go ahead and download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Hello and welcome back to a very special episode. Before we get started with AJ, there are just a few housekeeping things I need to go over for the sports world just to keep everybody updated. Dodgers outfielder and 2018 AL MVP Mookie Betts just signed a 12-year, $365 million contract that makes him the richest in baseball, up with Mike Trout right now. The MLB is well underway with their regular season games. Opening day was July 23rd. The Dodgers and Yankees both took home wins on that day. Denny Hamlin just won his NASCAR-leading 5th race of the year, this one being at Kansas Motor Speedway. And the NBA regular season, or seeding games, I should say, is fast approaching. Scrimmage games have been going on for the past few days. Those very seeding games, there will be 8 of them for each team, begin on July 30th. All right, now with AJ. He is our very first guest athlete on the podcast. He grew up right here in Kenosha, Wisconsin, where this podcast is currently taking place. He played 4 years of football at Indian Trail High School and Academy at the linebacker position, and in 2019 took his talents to UW-Stevens Point. AJ, first of all, thank you very much for being such an early supporter of the podcast. Thank you for coming on today. And first, we're going to talk about your experience as a freshman in the college football system. First thing I was just going to ask you is, I know a lot of people, when they go into the pros, they'll mention it on TV. They had a welcome to the NFL moment. Did you ever have a welcome to the college football world moment yet?
There's 2 separate things. When it comes to being on the team, it's really more of a loving community. It's not like, boom, it's in your face. Like, one of the first meetings we had was a huge community moment. Like, we talked about where each person came from, including like their racial issues and all that they're dealing with. And this came before like this whole George Floyd protest, which it was huge for us because we build a lot more as a community.
Right.
When it comes to on the field, 2 words. His name is Jalen Burks. He graduated as a tackle for us. Very talented guy. Was actually going to go into the draft, but he had to get surgery before he did, so he's postponing that. But I had the opportunity to line up against him a lot throughout the season. Never, not even a single time did I ever beat him. not a single time. No matter what I tried to do, he was too strong, too technically sound, very good at what he did, knew what to do every single time I tried to counter with something else. He would beat me every single time.
Is that a Stevens Point alum?
Yeah, he just graduated this year.
Goodness, that's crazy. Oh, he just graduated from Stevens Point. That's awesome. So when's he declaring? Then you thinking next year, or is it just on hold temporarily right now?
I am not sure. He hasn't really given much updates about it. I just know he got surgery healthy, so it's excited to keep up with this track.
Right. That's crazy, though. I mean, iron sharpens iron, I guess. You're probably not going to face that talent much on other teams. I mean, maybe you will. There's probably some good guys out there still, but that's
Not as good
good.
as him.
Not, I was going to say, and he's a grad too, so that's good. That's good. What are some similarities and differences in comparison to high school football with what you've seen in your first year so far?
So for similarities, football's football. The
Mhm.
bottom line, you play it if you love it. When it comes to high school, not everybody's always on board. There's always those kids that they're there because their parents want them to be there, or they just want to have a Letterman jacket.
Right.
And you always want to say you're playing with a family, but not everybody's always there on the same page, so they're not always there for you.
Mhm.
However, nothing compares to Friday Night Lights in high school,
Mhm.
especially when you're playing Saturday afternoons in front of parents. It's fun to play, but it's always a different atmosphere when it was Friday night.
For
But when
sure.
when it comes to like college, everybody wants to win. You are there for a reason. Are there because you want to play. Everybody is always on board. And what I always love about it is you have to know what you're doing. Especially on defense, you have to know where your help is, where your run support is, or what you're doing in pass coverage. Because if you're taking the wrong angle on something, you're blown. It doesn't matter what the person behind you can do, because if you take the wrong angle, your whole
Right.
side of the field is taken over.
For sure. Well, that's your position too. I mean, I feel like in high school, it's kind of under the radar, but let's say you got the whole dad's coach thing going on, or you have people around you. Maybe one or two plays won't completely blow you, but I feel like in college, when you're out there and you're competing with other people who want to win and are there because they need to be there. I mean, if you're a starter and you make a mistake like that, coverage is blown, you could have your spot. You could be on the hot seat if you got a
Oh,
backup who's hungry for
absolutely.
a spot, right?
hmm
Absolutely. Any huge, well, I guess you kind of answered the differences part too. So, what I had AJ do is what I kind of had Ryan do on episode 2, except with the NFL because he is a football player. I feel like that'd be kind of fitting. We did NFL power rankings, we did a sleeper, and we did a bust. So, for the power rankings, we did our top 5. And AJ did a lot of research on this, so I'm really excited to see this. And then we have a sleeper and a bust. I'm going to let you rattle yours off first. You can justify in between why you have, who you have, where you have them, and then we can kind of cross paths.
So I know we're really similar with most of it. I know our top three is the same. I got number 1 Chiefs, number 2 Ravens, number 3 Saints. I
Mhm.
think those are pretty self-explanatory. The Chiefs still have Patty Mahomes, especially if he's healthy all year. They're going to be killer.
Oh, yeah.
Um, they only lost really Kendall Fuller, who didn't even play that much. He only started in 4 games,
Right.
and they still added some veteran talent with Ricky Salas-Jones at tight end.
Mhm.
With the Ravens, they're still a powerhouse. It's the Ravens. They did
Oh,
lose
yeah.
some big players, Marshall Yanda and Michael Pierce, but they still added some small key players, Derek Wolfe and Jake Ryan.
For sure.
They're still the Ravens. They have Lamar Jackson. So, the reigning MVP, they're going to do some great things.
Oh, the run game's ridiculous too.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
With the Saints, they're still a great team. Elvin Kamara, Mike Thomas, Drew Brees. They lost some key players, Von Bell and Eli Apple, but they still gained some key players again with Emmanuel Sanders and Malcolm Jenkins. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
think those three I think we agree is, those are top 3 for sure.
Mhm.
I think where we start to veer off is at my number 4, I have the 49ers. People are sleeping on them so much this year. It seems like people forget that they just went to the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
They added Trent Williams, a huge left tackle who's going to be a huge replacement for Joe Staley, and in the draft they picked up Brandon Ayuk, which I think fills the system really well. He's a very good route runner, very fast, which is what you need in a big run system and a play action heavy offense.
Mhm.
Their defense is still really good. They picked up a few picks, especially with Javon Kinlaw. And I think overall they're still going to be a really good team. I mean, they just went to the Super Bowl and they barely lost because Patty Mahomes did Patty Mahomes.
Mhm.
At number 5, the Tampa Bay Bucks. I know you have them up there too. I just think they have a lot to prove. They have a very, very good team on paper. Adding Tom Brady, Gronk in the draft, Tristan Wirfs, who I think is very good, though does have some technical issues. Those can probably be easily fixed.
Oh, yeah.
Like I said, on paper they're a really good team. I just don't know if I can trust it yet.
Oh, for sure. For sure. It's a new lineup. I mean, you have the whole team chemistry thing too. Yes, you have Brady and Gronk, but I mean, Godwin, Evans, you got to see how they're going to share receptions with Gronk, who's coming out of retirement. We'll see how that goes. And I'm sure they'll be fine. They're professionals. But so I do agree with you at the top 3 with the Chiefs. I mean, Patrick Mahomes. Only person I can think of to compare him with for arm strength is Matt Stafford. Only person I can really think of to compare him with mobility is Russell Wilson. The ability to throw from multiple angles with him, no matter like where his balance point is, front foot, back foot, jumping off one foot. I mean, it's amazing. They got Watkins, Hardman, Hill. They'll still be a really good help. I really like Clyde Edwards-Helaire out of the draft, actually. I think he'll help Williams, and he'll complement him nicely in the backfield. He had 16 touchdowns, over 1,400 yards in college with that stacked LSU team that like all graduated together, it seems like. Ravens, same thing. I love J.K. Dobbins. I feel like Mark Ingram has 2 years left on his contract. Whether he stays or not, Dobbins in Ohio State, he looks like another Zeke in my opinion. Like the stats are comparable. His stature is comparable. Everything, his play style, the way he cuts, the way he's able to just put his head down and bulldoze people. I mean, he's got a really good combination of speed and power. So whether Ingram leaves or whether he doesn't after those 2 years, I think they're going to be really good. I see a lot of like pre-snap trickery, 200 rushing yard games on them because they have so many weapons. They can pull RG3 in there and do it like Belichick used to do with Tebow. Just put him in wherever you want to. I mean, they just have straight up athletes back there. So I love that. Their 3-4 defensive scheme has a really strong secondary. They got Marcus Peters and Earl Thomas coming back. They just got Calais Campbell too on their line. So I think they're going to get their money's worth there. The guy's only missed like 6 games in 12 years. Saints, I also agree. There's way too much talent on that team to not consider them as a top 3. Emmanuel Sanders, I think that's going to complement Drew Brees really nicely. He's quietly had like 800 yards in his last 5 seasons. He's almost always healthy. Cameron Jordan's going to do great things. So, I mean, we agree on all that, of course. So with the Bucs, I have them just a bit higher for this reason. First, they're stacked. They got Brady, Gronk, Godwin, Evans, all top 15 wide receivers and just pass catchers in general. When you talk about Gronk, Godwin, and Evans, if Gronk is who he was before he left. The defensive secondary does worry me a bit. They continuously get lit up. They don't really have a different secondary than they had 2 years ago when Mitch Trubisky, of all people, threw 6 touchdowns on them. That's saying something, and I'm a Bears fan, so I mean, that is no bias involved there at all. Anyway, I think the line will be fine. They got Ndamukong Suh if he stays clean. Shaquille Barrett, who had 19.5 sacks last year, who absolutely nobody is talking about. Jason Pierre-Paul. Secondary, I just feel like they're going to get torn up. That's why I don't have them any higher than 4. I do have them above the Seahawks, who are my 5, and I do have them above the 49ers because I feel like that offense is a little more established. Jimmy Garoppolo has shown he can be a really good game manager, but throughout the playoffs, they went run heavy. Once the Chiefs kind of realized what was going on, they said, okay, you want to play slow and steady? We're not going to let you play that play scheme at all. We're going to basically have an arms race with you. And they lost that arms race because Pat Mahomes did what Pat Mahomes does in the last like 12 minutes of the game. That's my only issue with them is I feel like if they're going up against a team that matches up well with them, they cannot blow them out. They cannot beat them in an arms race. And I feel like with the loss of Emmanuel Sanders too, I mean, he's got Goodwin to throw to. He's got a decent backfield and everything. I'm just interested to see how Jimmy G like responds to the new adjustments on the offense. He doesn't have a whole lot of people to throw to, in my opinion. He still has Kittle as well, who is a top 2 tight end up there with Kelsey. But I feel like, especially from what I saw in the Super Bowl, I think Jimmy G is still a game manager, in my opinion. And if you put the ball in his hands towards the end of the game, he might not be the one to do something. He might have to dump it off to someone else. Completely my opinion, though. And I mean, we have them. Personally, I have the 49ers right at 6, like very close behind the Seahawks. The reason I have the Seahawks above them is because Russell Wilson can make those plays late in the game. I think he's a Hall of Famer already. Like if he retired right now, I think he has the resume for it. He's got the Super Bowl. He's missing the MVP, which we'll talk about in a second. But he's got weapons. He's got Lockett, Metcalf, Greg Olsen. I still hope they get Josh Gordon back because I think he meshed really, really well with them. Quandre Diggs is an exciting safety to watch on that team. He had 3 picks last year. I mean, Bobby Wagner continues to be a cornerstone for that defense. He's going to stand up against almost any offense. I just have the edge over the 49ers because I think Jimmy losing Emmanuel Sanders might hurt them a bit. So we both did a lot of talking there. We're going to have you do your sleeper and your bust, and then we'll go to mine and we'll kind of cross paths with that as well.
So I completely agree with you with what you just said with everything. I do still think the 49ers will be a little bit better just because I think I have a little bit more faith in Jimmy G.
Yeah, as you should. Yeah.
But off to my sleeper, I think a team that's going to take a huge boost this year is the Denver Broncos.
Oh yeah.
Drew Lock is going to develop. I think he could be really good. They just picked up Jerry Jeudy.
I gotcha.
KJ Hamler, and they have a backfield of Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay, which I think will be a very good dynamic duo.
Oh yeah.
Defensively, they have Von Miller still, and they put up 40 sacks last year and only allowing 19.8 points per game and 225 yards per game or passing yards per game.
Mm-hmm.
But they played KC twice, Green Bay, and Houston. So having those stats, playing those good teams, shows that their defense is still really capable of what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the Broncos really step up. I think they were 6-10 last year. I
Yeah.
think they'll definitely completely reverse that. I think they might even make the playoffs.
Oh, for sure. And I'll have you do your bust too. We'll do them consecutively.
So my bust is going to be the Vikings. They lost a lot. They lost Stephon Diggs. They lost Trey Waynes, Jefferson Griffin, Linville Joseph, and they added huge help with Michael Pierce and I guess Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
But to me, that just doesn't seem like it's enough to make up for what they lost. I'm not a big believer in everybody saying Kirk Cousins is bad. I think he's honestly a solid quarterback who's just not always in the best situations what his offense is giving him.
Mm-hmm.
But I still don't think that the Vikings can pick up from where they left off from last year. I think they will do worse.
Oh, for sure. And both of those I really considered, like with the Broncos, the two-headed backfield, the fact that they really went after pass catchers. I think they got a tight end in the late rounds. They went after Jerry Jeudy. They're building around him. They believe in him. The defense is set. You have Von Miller. You have Chris. I mean, that secondary is fine. They're kind of, sort of, I'm stretching it a little, like the Bears. Very, very established defense. Nothing going on offense for a while, but now they're building. They have Drew Lock, and this is where they're not like the Bears. Their offense actually has hope, in my opinion. They went out and got Drew Lock weapons. I definitely trust Drew Lock. For my sleeper, I have your Patriots. I have everyone is saying, Brady's gone, dynasty over. I was one of them for a little bit until I actually step back and look at how everything's going to go. The Patriots lost Brady, not Belichick, not the mastermind who put his dog on TV during the draft. I had to put that in there. The team is still going to operate under a mastermind system, and they've gone up against other teams that know their schemes. I mean, Bill Belichick has so many former players who have even coached against him, and they're still able to beat them. The Titans were an exception this year with Vrabel. But Stidham knows the offense. Newton is as productive as anyone can get when healthy. Whoever wins that quarterback competition, I trust them with that system. I think the situation will be fine. Defense was number one in the league in almost every category last year, and they didn't really lose a whole lot on defense. They allowed 180 pass yards a game. That is like shutting everyone down routinely. They have Gilmore, McCourty, J.C. Jackson, all had 5 or more picks. So I think they both had 5, and then Gilmore had 6. So that's 16 picks out of 3 cornerbacks right there. McCourty being a safety. Middle of the road offensive production. If they can just get like 16th in every category, which I think they can do with decent weapons, I still trust Edelman. I think they'll be just fine. I think N'Keal Harry needs to develop a little more, but if he does, and if they can just be a middle of the road offense, I think they can make a deep playoff run. That defense carried them last year. I mean, who was Tom Brady throwing to other than Edelman? And Edelman was hurt. I mean, absolutely no. What, Josh Gordon for a little, AB for a game.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
I mean, if they can just be a decent offense, I don't really believe in the Bills, especially after I saw Josh Gordon's lack thereof IQ behind the. I mean, you saw he threw a lateral with like a minute left in a playoff game against Houston. I don't trust them. I love their defense, but I still feel like with Belichick there at coach, especially, they still have a talented team. They have that defense. I'm not ruling them out. I think they're still winning their division. For my bust, I have the Falcons. So much talent, and I feel like I say this every year, but such bad circumstances. Everyone in the division upgraded this year except for them. The Falcons' defense was already really bad. They were allowing like almost 300 yards a game passing. They have Matt Ryan on the offense. They have Julio Jones, top 3 wide receiver. Todd Gurley, very talented when healthy. Kelvin Ridley, very talented. But this team cannot keep up with the others around them. I mean, okay, we have Tom Brady. We've already talked about the Bucs. They're up there. The Panthers have upgraded with Teddy Bridgewater. I feel like they're going to be very stable with that. They've had a decent defense, even though they lost Kuechly to retirement. Christian McCaffrey's a top 2 running back in the league, in my opinion. I mean, the dude's an absolute juggernaut. He can catch for 1,000 and run for 1,000. I mean, they're lucky to get 3rd in that division. I think the Saints are going to be a juggernaut. Only team I could see the Falcons beating, and it doesn't matter because I don't think they're making the playoffs, is the Panthers because Teddy's got to get used to that offensive scheme. But even though there's so much talent on there, I mean, they're going to have to play an arms race with everyone. You see them every year. They're getting beat up by no matter who they play. Well, now they have to play against Brady, Breeze, and Bridgewater with some weapons. So I'm very scared for them, to be honest. I think they should just shoot for a draft pick and help out on defense. But I feel like they continuously, ever since they lost Trevathan after that Super Bowl appearance, they're just putting the defense on the back burner and they're continuing to build weapons with that offense. But they're my bust. So Any comments? I mean, I'll let you bounce. I'll bounce that off you as well. What do you think about those two?
So I really wanted to say the Patriots because everybody knows how much I love the Patriots.
Mhm.
I didn't want to sound like a broken record, but at the same time, I know Cam Newton's going to add a dimension Tom Brady couldn't,
Right.
but it's not like they gained anything else on offense. Tom Brady couldn't work with it. I feel like Cam Newton's not going to be able to do much with it either.
Mhm.
And defensively, they still lost some key players. I know they lost to Leonard Roberts and Jamie Collins, two big linebackers in their defense. So while they still have a really strong secondary, I think they will de- decrease a little bit in their production. But
Mhm.
like you said, they're still going to be a good team, especially under Belichick, and they're still same coaching staff. So I think they will be good.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, judging by the talent on the Jets staff right now and on the Dolphins, I think they'll still be able to beat up on them, get a quick 4 wins out of there. Their out of division games are going to be a little more tough. They might split with the Bills. I just don't see anyone in there able to really dominate. I don't
Yeah.
trust the Bills yet.
Hmm.
You throw them in with, the NFC South, they're getting murdered. But
Yeah.
I mean, they're not in the NFC South, so I think they'll do okay. So then we have an early MVP prediction, very early. It is only July. Who do you have for this upcoming season?
I'm going with Patty Mahomes. I I think the best quarterback who's going to come out in a long time.
Mhm.
He can do everything, like you said. He can literally do everything. He's such a good quarterback that under the same system as Alex Smith, he surpassed him to the point where they just traded him away.
Yep.
So I honestly, if he stays healthy every game, he will easily win MVP to me. I know how
Hmm.
good Lamar Jackson is. I know how good Russell Wilson is, but Patty Mahomes will be better to me. I just can't see any other way.
For sure. I only had Russell Wilson for this one reason. I feel like it happens in the NBA a lot, except for LeBron. He'll come back and get one every once in a while. I feel like after a bit, especially because Patty Mahomes didn't play the whole season last year, if for whatever reason he gets hurt or if he plays a full season, they're not going to keep voting him in for MVP. If it was logical, he'd be my pick right now. But I feel like if they're looking for a new face, Russell Wilson will be that face. They just have to win their division, though. That's the only thing. You're
Yeah.
not going to get recognition if you're not up there in the seedings. You can put up great numbers, but if your team goes 9-7 or 10-6, I mean, unless you are breaking records like Mahomes did, but they actually won more,
Yeah.
you're not going to get it. So I do have Russell Wilson. He's very durable. He's never missed a game in 8 years that he's played in there. I think that's really important. Pat missed a couple, but he still got away with it because he can just throw for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns whenever he wants to.
Yeah.
This offense, though, they have a really balanced attack, 52% pass, 48% rush. I feel like they're still able to threaten teams with their backfield with Chris Carson. And they usually pull a few laterals here and there. They'll do pre-snap motions with Tyler Lockett. So I feel like they're able to threaten. They're very deceiving. Pete Carroll is still really smart when it comes to dictating that offense. So I feel like that bodes well for Russell Wilson. They can still run the read option. He's still super mobile. Lockett has been consistent as ever. I mean, he's got like the lowest drop percentage in the past couple years. Metcalf, I'm excited to see him develop. He had a really good first year. I think he had like 900 yards, a few touchdowns. It was 5 or 6, I forget. Greg Olson's going to add another dimension. Yes, he's old, but I feel like he's going to be another target that if they're doubling Lockett or if they're doubling Metcalf, whoever's on a run at that point, Olson could be a really good red zone target. He can box out linebackers, corners, whoever they try and throw on him. Wilson's a dual threat, so I feel like that's really going to help them out. Their strength of schedule is high. So, I mean, this is a big if, but if they can beat up on their division, if they can beat up on the Cardinals, who are still really young, although I love the D Hop acquisition, if they can beat the 49ers, that's the huge one. I don't really see the Rams being a huge threat at the moment because of their lackluster offensive production right now. Goff is still trying to find his identity, in my opinion. But if they can go 2-0 on the 49ers, this guy's a beast. Like, nobody is denying his stats. He's got 227 touchdowns to 68 picks in his career. I mean, very good touchdown to interception ratio. He's a winner. He's 86, 41, and 1 for his winning percentage. That's a 66. They just need to win the division to get the recognition. I feel like they're always operating under the radar. For the past 5 years, the Seahawks are a team, they will be in the playoffs, but you cannot tell me they're going to be a 1 or 2 seed. If they can get up there in the high seed, I just feel like the NFL would like to see a new face up there. Although Patty Mahomes is a very new face. If Russell Wilson were to get that recognition up in the seedings, I feel like he'd get it because he's always putting up good numbers, never misses a game, good dual threat quarterback. He's got weapons this year. I like it a lot. It's going to be a stretch. They got to win more. They got to win like plus or minus 12 games. But if they can do it, if they can beat up their division, which is a very tough one, even though the Rams, but if the Rams are the worst team in your division, that's not a bad division. They're still going to scrape out 6 to 8 wins, in my opinion. If they can do all of that, I think he can be the MVP. That's a stretch, but I'd love to see it. I mean, he's a very, very good quarterback. He's got his ring. I feel like that'd be really good to add to the resume, but Drew Brees still doesn't have an MVP, so I mean, anything can happen for sure. So no preseason for the NFL this year. I kind of wanted to weigh the pros and cons on that one. I'll ask you, what do you think is good about that?
I think the obvious thing is less injury.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's always something that goes wrong in preseason. There's always one star player that gets hurt.
Oh yeah.
Um, there's also some coaches that have said I couldn't remember which ones, but some of them have said they like their controlled scrimmages and joint scrimmages during the off season with other teams instead
Right.
of those actual games because they feel like they can control those conditions better.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I still think it's better to have a preseason game though, at least one.
Yeah.
It never hurts to have a game day situation, with the crowd there, everyone screaming.
Right.
And especially with teams that this is their first year of a head coach going in, sometimes you're not really bought in on what they have. And if you're not seeing how they're gonna act in a game day situation or how they're gonna call their calls in a game day situation, and they go into their actual regular season game with the head coach that might be unprepared, that loses a lot of faith with those players.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So I don't know. I think they should have had at least one preseason game.
Mm-hmm.
I think probably just one would have been good
Yeah.
because I just think it's always better to have like a scrimmage game where you can still see how everybody performs.
And I kind of get the logistics behind it. COVID's going on,
Mhm.
decrease. These guys are going to be together in training camp. Why have them clash with other people earlier than they have to? For the pro, same thing here. I mean, it lessens the chance of injury. Pat Mahomes just signed like a $500 million contract. God forbid he gets hurt in preseason. You know that all those number crunchers are going to be throwing their papers on the ground. They're going to be so mad. I mean, the coaches, the staff, corporate. I mean, they're all going to be so mad if they lose. I think it was Jordy Nelson a few years ago had a non-contact injury in like the
Mhm.
first play of preseason, and he was gone. I mean, that's horrible. All games become meaningful. I feel like that's a good thing too. But with the controlled conditions, I kind of agree. I'm going to branch off of that. If you have, let's say, some rookies coming in, they didn't get drafted too high, they really have to fight for their position. Let's say there is no preseason, they could not make it. I mean, you're in a control condition. You're going to be in there with other guys who have been in that offense or defense 2, 3, 4 years. They know the circumstances better. They have that advantage. They know what coach wants to see, and they could edge them out because of that, not because of skill level, just because they know the scheme, which you should know the scheme. Let's say the rookie, middle round, makes it. That is he's going to get, I mean, I feel like it's going to hit him like a truck that his very first game counts. It's against another team. He's going to go from basically training camp scrimmages to another team in week one. I mean, I feel like that could be a very bad experience. I feel like it could be stale. I feel like they could rub it off for sure, but I don't know. And I feel like Russ could take over a little bit too. If you're a seasoned vet, like, guys we're talking about, Russell Wilson, or guys who have established themselves like Patty Mahomes or Lamar Jackson or Tom Brady, who's been in the league for 20 years now. I don't think Russ is a real thing. I mean, you're constantly working on your game. It's going to be second nature at this point in terms of perfecting your craft. But if you have like a second year quarterback or someone who's just trying to get in, or Drew Lock, for example, he's got new weapons. Wouldn't it have been so much better for him to work with those new weapons against another team before it actually counts? Instead, they're in this controlled environment, like you said, and all of a sudden they got to play week one against another team when it counts. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, a whole month of preseason has always been excessive. I feel like
Mhm.
people have been dissing that for a while, but
Yeah, absolutely.
just one little tune-up would have been nice. That way, if you got some guys on the line, you can line them up against another cornerback who doesn't know what play is being ran. And I don't know. I agree though, for sure. I feel like there's a little more cons than pros in this case if they don't at least have one. I mean, this kind of branches into COVID's impact on football, which we were going to talk about as our last segment here. Obviously, it got rid of the preseason. In terms of college, you just told me some news. If you kind of want to, this is more of a local thing. It's obviously going city by city, but what's your situation at UW Stevens Point right now?
So I know our city council up in Stevens Point just voted no on allowing teams to play at Gorky Field, which is where we play. We share with a few high schools,
Right.
which is huge because that's our home field. So we don't know what's really going to happen. I think this is with our whole conference. We still don't know if we're having a season.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this branches to almost I think every conference in all of college football. Nobody really knows if we're really having a season.
Yeah.
We're all in limbo. The NCAA never hasn't made a statement yet. Some conferences have canceled. Some have said only interconference games. So we're kind of just waiting. I think everybody's just making sure they're staying in shape, making sure they know mentally what to do when when we get back in the camp. We just gotta wait at this point.
And then when were we supposed to report? Like pretty soon, right?
Um, for us, I believe it was August 12th that we were supposed to report, and we were hopefully gonna find news by July 12th, and we still don't know. So it's
Right.
understandable, but because of COVID, but it's still nice, to be able to know if we can play.
Right. And I'm kind of going to put you on the spot in here. I didn't really write this in or anything, but let's say the season does commence. As a football player, as a linebacker in WEAC right now, and just an athlete in general, what precautions would you like to see be taken if you do go forth of the season?
I think you can answer this multiple ways. I know different conferences, different teams, different divisions, you're in very different circumstances. For
Right.
us, away games, we've talked about this, how you go there, play, and come back. You're in very little contact with anybody besides who you're playing against.
Mm-hmm.
Though I do understand the risk, like if we're playing with some team and somehow one of them does have the virus, that after that one game, a lot of people from both teams can have it, and they go back to their respective universities spreading that. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, that's a huge, dangerous situation. I've also seen those reports about having college football players tested before each game, or a few days before each game. I don't think that's a good idea either, because that just comes another routine for them, and that you're trying to get prepared for a game. You don't really want to add something else.
Right.
Um, I honestly don't know what we can do.
Mm-hmm.
We're nowhere near like any type of cure or vaccine to this virus. We don't know what's gonna happen. I trust the NCAA and our conference and our YI conference to be able to come up with a smart decision for us to hopefully be able to play and be safe.
Oh, for sure. And I know they've been talking about, at least for the NFL or maybe D1, like different face guards and stuff. I feel like there's only so much you can do there because you're still making contact and you still got to not
Absolutely.
touch your face. But then again, with Division 3, it's a whole different thing funding wise. Obviously, the
Yeah,
divisions
absolutely.
are, yeah, they're divided by population. So if there's less people involved, there's going to be less money. But I mean, I hope you guys have a season for sure. At least
Me
you
too.
could still, because then what happens with eligibility? Excuse me, I can talk. I mean, that's just a whole nother question too.
Yeah.
But
I think everybody's just putting off that question for another day and hoping we have a season in the first place.
oh yeah, for sure. Are the schedules released yet? I haven't checked that. Hypothetically,
Um,
I mean, I'm sure they were a bit ago because it's
they,
already July.
our
But
original schedules were released back in like March, but
yeah,
we
that's
don't.
all up in the air
Yeah,
now, though.
and that was right when we got quarantined up for spring break. So
Right,
who knows what's gonna happen?
for sure. Well, I mean, regardless of what happens in your upcoming season, if you have one or if you don't, best of luck to you in school. Best of luck to you in football and everything. I really
Thanks,
hope you
man.
have a good sophomore year.
Thanks.
Feel free to come back anytime, share any of your experiences. We'd love an insider's opinion. I'm not an athlete. I just talk about sports at this point. But I really appreciate you coming on. You brought a lot of really, really good insight in terms of the NFL. You brought up a lot of different acquisitions that I need to do more research on for sure. And I really want to thank you for coming on and supporting the podcast. I saw a couple of your UW Stevens Point fellow teammates started following too, so I really appreciate the love there.
Yeah,
And
absolutely, man.
yeah, I mean, I really appreciate it. I hope you have a great year, and thank you
Thanks,
so
man.
much.
Yeah, take care, man.
Yep. So that is all we're going to have for now, Fanatics. That's episode 3. AJ was our first guest athlete. He was kind enough to take time out of his Friday night to come out on here and help us out and give us some content and make some really, really analytical predictions. Make sure you follow the page at all.sportsnow on Instagram. Stay tuned for episode 4. And when this one comes out, please blow it up. Please blow up the page with likes, comments, follows. And thank you all so much for the support. Thank you.